Hello and welcome. My name is Gary Sumrall, also known as Chap, a name given to me by those I've served. And this is Journey, conversation with Chap and friends during the midst of crises. This is part two of a session that we had with Evelyn Lemly, our CEO of Kairos International. And today I want to share with you and with Evelyn's assistance the story of Kairos. The word itself is Greek for God's special time. And it's a prison ministry that has been this year in existence for 45 years. And it has done phenomenal work. And it's something you need to know about because it is life-changing and has made a difference in so many areas of life, not only for those incarcerated, but also the volunteer. So Evelyn, thank you again for being with us today. I appreciate so much your time and willingness to share. And if you will speak to our audience today, giving us a little bit of history about Kairos International.
Well, thanks, Chap, for having me. It's an honor to be here and to talk about something I love, Kairos, and the ministry that's impacted me and thousands of others around the world for these 45 years. The history is we did start in 1976. A group of people, specifically one man, said, there's got to be a way that we can make a difference in these prisons. And they did that after they had gone through a similar but different program on the outside themselves and felt like they needed to be living this out every day of their lives. And this particular gentleman, Tom Johnson, was a lawyer. And he said, I need to be helping. And God just put it on his heart to do this. And so they started in the state of Florida, because that's where they lived, and tried to get into the facilities. And it took them a while, but they finally were given a facility to go into. And it was Union Correctional, which was considered one of the harshest, roughest prisons in the state. And I'm pretty sure, don't know this as a fact, that they thought, well, we'll give them that and it won't work and they'll go away and they'll leave us alone. And so there's a group of people went into that facility, the very first one in 1976, and they had a large group of people and the facility and the individuals saw men change right before their eyes from these hardened, harsh individuals to people who literally made a choice to be different. We're still in that same prison today and have been in there consistently every year since 1976 and are invited in every year and have a great relationship. And it's just a testimony to the impact that for 45 years we've been working in the facility we started in and have never missed a beat. And that facility now or over the years has literally changed to where they say it's a 100% different environment than what it used to be. And so our history of doing that, of after it started there and then that success, other prisons heard about it and they start calling and saying, hey, would you do that here? And then pretty much word of mouth is what expanded Kairos. And then other states started hearing and they're like, hey, can you do that out here? And they started going, and then other countries started hearing and saying, we want to do something here. And so Kairos grew by reputation and by results, and by God's grace, not because Kairos was going, hey, let's do more, let's do more. In fact, their intention when it started was to do one prison. And now here we are 45 years later in over 520 communities with 3 programs operating, with 30,000 volunteers at any point in time, with somewhere in the neighborhood of 28 to 29,000 people going through our program every single year. And then hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people on a cumulative basis that it gets impacted. And so God started with a man and then a group of people who had a heart and a vision and a passion to do something and making a difference in one location. And then he's expanded it to become this huge global ministry that is doing the same thing that we started doing 45 years ago, is taking in and sharing that transforming love and forgiveness of Jesus Christ, and at very targeted groups of people, which is those impacted by incarceration, whether it's men or women's facilities, whether it's youth and youth facilities, or whether it's the women of the incarcerated, of which we have a program also, so that we can help make them productive citizens in their community and in society. And that community could be right where they're at today, not just waiting for them to get out, but right where they're at today to see the work of God in action. So that's what we're about.
And I can give personal testimony to its effectiveness. In fact, the first Kairos that we did at the Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women, we had a select number of individuals and we divided them equal. And we looked at those who were the strongest positive leaders and those that were the strongest negative leaders. And we brought them together. And after that Kairos experience, they were completely changed. And that prison itself was turned around. And there's one particular woman of that group who at the time was one of the strongest negative influences, who had a road to Damascus experience that day. And until the day she died, never received another disciplinary report the whole time she was there, and turned out to be one of the strongest positive leaders in that entire prison, and virtually single-handedly turned it around. And I can say the same with Kairos Death Row 1 in Angola, where we took 10 individuals, all death row inmates who'd been there for a long time, who volunteered to be a part of the program. Now, their motives originally weren't all pure, and we know that, and they will give testimony to that. They just wanted to get out of the cell, to come see somebody they hadn't seen before, and to get food they had heard about. But since that Kairos experience, their lives were completely transformed. And as a result of that, they have transformed that environment of not only the prisoners in death row, but of the staff as well. Kairos mantra is listen, listen, love, love. And there's a manual that has to be followed. And I know our time is short, but in a nutshell, and we'll give an address at the end of the program of how people can contact you. Tell them how they get involved in Kairos.
Well, Kairos is structured so around every prison or youth facility or our Kairos outside communities, we use local lay people, just people who have a heart for Jesus Christ. And so wherever we're located, we always need people who are willing to serve through prayer, through financial giving, or through being a volunteer. That being a volunteer could be on the support team outside of the facility, and it could be going into the facility. There's so many different ways to be involved in the ministry to make an impact, and it really is based on where you feel God's calling you and making a difference. But so often our volunteers talk about. I love doing Kairos because I was on the front row of God's miracles. I literally had a front row seat to see God at work tangibly in front of my eyes and watch people go from downtrodden and beat up and without hope to finding hope and feeling more optimistic and like there's a potential. And gosh, if you can get someone to go in that in a 4-day period and then try to strive them to carry it on, then it's something worth being involved in. And I'll promise you, I've never met someone who has done Kairos and that has not said they saw someone change before their eyes. And that's all Jesus Christ. And so you can get involved by, we have a website, KairosPrisonMinistry.org, and all you got to do is go on there and say you're interested, and we'll get you in touch with the right people at any point in time. It's an awesome opportunity. And just going back to something that you said too, Chap, of we do ask for the prisons to bring together the negative leaders and the positive. It's not just a reward for those who already know Christ. It's bringing those negative leaders together because they can have a bigger impact on that facilities and the yards than anybody. Because when somebody sees somebody that was a gang leader or a negative influencer or the one who was having everybody beat up or whatever the situations are, absolutely change, and they go, wow, what happened to that guy that I used to be afraid of, and all of a sudden he's the one protecting me or helping or being positive or supportive, and it literally is changing. And so then others start going, well, what happened there? And then you have these people that go and they go out to others and they say, you need to go to Kairos. And they're like, what? I don't know anything about this. And they're like, just trust me, go. And that used to be a negative person on the yard. And it transforms people right where they're at. And again, it's not us. It's that we're just the tools that God uses. And so we're so thankful for that. So we welcome anybody to get involved. Our criteria is that you gotta be a Christian. You gotta love the Lord Jesus Christ so that you can share who he is in your life. And other than that, you just gotta be willing to come help.
With regard to the transformation that takes place, it's not just jailhouse religion. I'm speaking to my audience here. And it is not just for the 4 days or the next week. There are statistics out there with regard to recidivism. There are statistics out there with regard to disciplinary reports. And an example I'll give is we tracked the first 1,000 women that were a part of Kairos at LCIW that left the prison. And with regard to rate of recidivism, depending on who you speak to or what numbers you look at, some say 8 out of 10 who leave prison return. Some say 5 out of 10 who leave prison return. Of that 1,000 women that left after taking part in Kairos, the recidivism rate of that group was less than 3%. And it was shortly after that we were visited by the Minister of Justice of the Republic of Ireland. She brought her entire cabinet over. We had just gone through our first ACA, American Correctional Association, audit, and we were ranked in the top 3% of women's facilities in the U.S. with regard to care and custody and programs. And we spent the whole day with them, and we came back at the end of the day for a debriefing, and it was going round table, and her chief secretary looked at me and said, Chaplain, I'm curious, in your opinion, what is the key to rehabilitation? And for those of you that do not know me, you don't ask me a question like that unless you really want to know. And I looked at him and I said as much. I said, sir, you don't know me. So unless you really don't want to know, don't ask. He said, but oh, I do. And very to the point, I looked at him and said, in my opinion, the only key to rehabilitation is when there's been a personal encounter with Christ. And much to my surprise, he agreed. And that's what Kairos is about. And it does that through an introduction and then does it through the establishment of a prayer community. And I cannot say enough or recommend to you enough this organization. So please, after prayerful consideration, if you're looking for a ministry that is effective, one that is without question above reproach, a ministry of integrity, then let me strongly suggest to you Kairos Prison Ministry International and encourage you to reach out to our guest today, Miss Evelyn Lemly. Evelyn, thank you again for your time. Let's do this again and let's do it more often. To those of you that spent your time with me on Journey today, thank you for allowing us to be part of your journey. And until next time, my name is Gary Sumrall, also known as Chap, and this has been Journey, Conversation with Chap and Friends. Until we meet again, God's richest blessings on you all, and shalom.